Yeah, baby. Yeah. The Mac is back. Back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Junikala, and today we're having a look at LA Modern Percussion by Ollie. So, another Ollie library. Last time we checked out Nashville scoring strings, which I was quite impressed by, especially in the short note department. And also, for once, a library has useful different mic positions that not only sound different, but they all sound good. For that library, I really think you need to or should be adjusting the mics quite a bit, because it does tremendously increase the flexibility and sound of the library. But yeah, in short, very impressed by that, and more than that, I was curious to see what else they've got cooking. So I was asking about LA Modern Percussion and also the scoring synths library, which we're also going to check out, and Ollie has kindly enough said yes. So on the course today, we got LA Modern Percussion. Looking at the website here, so basically they say definitive blockbuster percussion collection, recorded and mixed by Alan Meyerson. So we got some big heavy hitters in this one as well. And this was done at Warner why do I struggle pronouncing this? Warner Bros. Brothers Eastwood stage. And they say this is done exactly the way they're done, or Alan Meyerson does them for high-budget film score projects. So a lot of very promising words there. They say it's designed to be sculpted, processed, and layered into larger-than-life ensembles. Then they have over 100 presets, which they call multis. And that sounds good. Toms, bass drums, no, bass drums. Tupans, surdos, taikos, daikos, djuns. Oh, sorry, djun. Sounds like a Star Wars animal. Dumbeks, Gran Casa, Piatti, rotos, all with a variety of sticks, brushes, and mallets. So, big fan of that. You know, I love my brushes and my mallets. Again, just including that exponentially blows up the utility of your library. So please, everybody making percussion sample libraries, include different types of sticks and brushes and mallets. It's always fantastic. And also they give such great textures that often beat a typical stick. So, all of these are done in a floor? What's wrong with my pronunciation? 4-player ensembles, and also solos. So again, tremendous choice, simply from a strategy point of view, because it again makes it so much more diverse. Just a simple tweak. Obviously not simple in practice to do, because you still have to record it and work all of this stuff in there. But for us as users, that's a tremendous thing to have, because a lot of the time you don't want to have the ensemble sound. You want to have just a player in there. Yeah, Eastwood stage. And obviously they used a bunch of really good and expensive stuff to record it. Also has an advanced groove engine, so you can craft your own percussion beds within Kontakt. That's convenient, and I think that just about wraps it up. I think we're going to touch on this other stuff once we're actually in the library, but product requires Kontakt 5.8 full or above. So no player action for you. You got to have the full thing. Downloaded by, not by, but via Pulse, which again I love. Seems to work really, really well. Seems a lot faster than pretty much any other downloader that I've used. This requires 50 gigs of hard drive space to install, which means practically, let me go into the sample folder. This for me on drive after installation is 28.68 gigs, so a bit more than half of what they state there. It's kind of interestingly put. Obviously they put it correctly in the sense that you need this space to install, but also to state what it actually is after installation would be useful, because I'd say primarily people are interested in that piece of information. How much real estate is it going to take off my drive? And because even if you can't install it on that drive, you can install it somewhere else or download it and then move it. So I would probably put that first, and then something like, please note during installation you need this amount. Cool. That's about what the website tells you. And this is a bit of a, let me take this laptop into a different dimension. This is where a few challenges arise, because I would strongly recommend you watch the walkthrough video of this before you start using this, because the way this is laid out, there are some questions that at least I need answers to, and you don't get that because as far as I can tell on the website, I couldn't find a manual on this, nor could I find a manual in the the installation folder here. So in the LA Modern Percussion folder, as far as I can tell, there's nothing on that. So you'll probably need to watch the walkthrough video. Nothing wrong with that, but I would consider that to be like the not perhaps an advanced step, but something for those who want to dig a bit deeper and get their bearings. Would be great to watch. Usually I'm a proponent of the library unveiling itself, showing what it is and what it's capable of simply through the user experience of it. This tremendously advances the likelihood that people are going to use it, period, but get into it and stick with it, etc. It just makes life easier. That being said, the things that are in here are not tremendously complicated, but there's limited amount of info you can put into these different texts that go into these different folders, and there is room for interpretation in there as well. And also this interface doesn't exactly, it's a tremendous interface in terms of using this library, but it doesn't tell the approaches and philosophies that have been taken to create this library. And there will be a lot of stuff missing if you don't watch the walkthrough. Now the walkthrough is an hour long, which I love from the perspective of being thorough and really, diving deep into things. But it can be a tough ask for a lot of people. Now, if you do buy a library, you would presume you'd be invested into getting to know it. But that being said, I do also understand people who want the library to explain itself without having to watch such a video. So some of the things they talk about in there, and I did indeed watch probably about less than half of it. I tried to pick the key points in there, especially the questions that I have just by looking at this folder structure. And by the way, today I am keeping the Kontakt window in this recording open in the way that you can see these folders to the side, because first of all, it's going to be easier for me to follow where we are going if we do this. And also, I think it will be more helpful for you to understand how this is laid out. So basically, they wanted to, when it comes to the sound of this and how it's put together and configured, they wanted to take Alan Meyerson's mixing process and embed it into this library without actually having to process all of the source material through, you know, hardware or plugins or whatever he's using, and printing it into WAV files. So basically, they've modeled his mixing process, as I've understood it, into this library here, which if you go to the effects page, that's why you have this thing here. So they have different sort of presets that you can pull up by clicking this button here, and this opens actually the wrong folder for me. I don't know why it takes me here, but if you go to, oh, actually you can't see the folder, so never mind. But you do need to go to the, at least I need to go to the source folder in my sample library drive. Click that, go to LA Modern Percussion, then click 1.0 mix presets. And then you have a few different ones. So you got close, mid, OC, OH, which I think is overheads, OC, I don't know what it is, can't think of anything, room, and tom, huge, and tom's bass drum overhead mix. So the idea here is that you can just pull these up for different mix positions as they, I would presume, are modeled after Alan Meyerson, what he would do. And you find that these have numbers after them. So close 1, close 2, close 3, close 4. And the higher in the number you go, the more intensive the processing is. Here, maybe, again, something that opens up without knowing this, although this is not terribly cryptic exactly. I mean, you can you know, figure that out just by listening to them or just by using basic logic. But again, it's an additional step that you're asking the user to do. So I don't know, low processing, medium processing, high processing, extreme processing. I don't know. That's a lot of text, but I don't know. Could have a place and time for that. But that's how you pull up the mixes there. Now, based on what I've seen there, this is not how we're gonna look at the library here, because I'm more interested in just using and exploring the different mic positions, you know, out of the box. Then you have this modulation matrix. We're probably not going to look at this much either. Advanced, so here you can transpose, adjust velocity, spectrum, pitch, fine tune, etc. And again, effects is full of these different processing things. So again, here you can leverage the skill and experience and wisdom of Mr. Meyerson and presumably everybody who worked on this. So this is by no means, you should definitely use that approach. And actually, I'll see if I can, you know, compare some of the sounds in that regard. But, you know, presets and non, etc. And then we have the sequencer page here as well. So briefly looking at the folder structure here again. So this is the main folder. In here you have the mix presets folder, and then you have a bunch of stuff that is relevant to Kontakt. I think grooves. Yeah, so here we have some groove presets, I would presume, which you can open up. Then you have the instrument folder, which has all of the individual instruments. So we got bass drum, Daiko, Dhol, Djun, Dumbek, Gran Casa. You have something called master patches, Piatti, rotatoms, shaker, surdo, Taiko, tom, two-pan. So those seem to be the instruments. Again, here you got ENS, which stands for ensemble, and then you got, as far as I can tell, this is SL, which I would presume is solo. Again, I would have just written solo here because it would be just easier to understand. And then in brackets we got from ensemble, which is a bit confusing to me. So my thinking here maybe is that they recorded the individual instruments and then they combined those samples into to form the ensembles. That's what I'm taking from based on what they've written here. I don't know if that's the case. I don't think I could find that piece of information, whether it's actually an ensemble of players playing at the same time and then they sampled that to be the ensemble, or they sampled individual solo instruments and then mixed and combined those into the ensemble. I don't know what is the case. Based on this, because they say from ensembles, I would presume that they couldn't separate individual instruments from ensemble recordings. So I don't know, but I mean that seems to me like a redundant piece of or misleading piece of information. But I could easily be wrong about this and also confused in many ways. So again, that's not to shit on anybody. Just really touching on this because I'd want companies to maybe see something that maybe they missed, maybe they didn't. And again, there probably could be an explanation to this, why this makes more sense than my suggestion. But if I'm thinking it just by looking at this, probably someone else is as well. But yeah, I mean, it could say solo. The reason to shorten that here seems strange to me, but yeah, I would presume that's how solos are pulled up. Then you got a multis folder, which term did they use there? Okay, yeah, so this opens up a bunch of stuff. So yeah, this basically combines different instruments to form these kind of preset ensembles, I'd think. That's what I would presume is going on here. And then you got some Kontakt folders, which as far as I can tell are not for you to be used. But opening up instruments folder and going into bass drum ensemble. And again, here you have a lot of different things to pull up. So you got ensemble hard 1. Again, I don't know what that means. I'm presuming it means they're played hard or either processed hard. Again, I have no way of knowing unless I again watch that walkthrough video, but at least I didn't catch the explanation of why it's named this way there. So another mystery to figure out. Then there's a word that I do not know, which I'm sure is some sort of terminology that I'm missing. I think it says puili, and I'm sure I should know what it means, but I don't. But let's open hard 1, and I know that dynamic hits are, so this was explained. So this, as far as I can tell, includes, a more dynamic version of the instruments, the instrument here. So, all right, looking at this interface, I actually like how this is laid out. So in the blue zone, we have all of the samples they have for this particular instrument. So if on the left end of this, we have the quiet samples, and then they increase to the top, to the right, which sounds like this. So not velocity responsive, doesn't matter how slow, quiet or hard I play, it just plays the one sample. on this first green zone here, they've included all of these, I believe, did they say 25 or so samples in both of these keys. So if I play them together, it's just going to respond to the velocity that I play and play that, what's the word? The sample mapped to that velocity. Now, at first I thought that was great, and it is, but it gets slightly better. So to the right, you have two more green keys, and these are mapped so that every other velocity, so if you go from 1 to 25, it's going to be mapped to one or the other. So on the left key, I believe you have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, etc. And then on the right, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. Which means that as I'm playing, presuming I'm playing them one after the other, I can't repeat the same sample twice, which allows you to mitigate the machine gun effect. So what's interesting is this library doesn't have any round robins, as far as I understand. And they actually have a stellar reason and point for that, which is you can, if I play in a part, if I play that in MIDI and then I replay that part, it's going to be exactly the way I did it, which is exactly what I want as a composer. Now, with round robins, it can mean that since it's playing, slightly different takes on what I played, it can mean that the part is going to be different once I press play in a DAW, because it's randomizing those elements. So I actually really, really like this approach. And with a lot of libraries, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, and I don't think I even could, because I probably struggle to remember all the libraries that do this. But especially with percussion, I've noticed that it can be the case that if I don't have precise control of what sample it's playing, I can have certain takes. So let's say I print that drum part into audio. On certain hits, there's going to be more impact and more of a felt hit than on other print attempts, because you do have those randomized qualities, and they do affect phase, and phase oftentimes is a big part of how notes hit you. And with some libraries, it can be the case that then you lose the sense of impact because there are minor changes in the phase. Now, this is good in terms of bringing in randomization, but I don't want that as a composer who's working in the box, and I got to do everything in my power to insert humanity, insert soul and power into my music, compared to composers who have access to orchestras and studios and brilliant mixing engineers and etc. So I gotta control things pretty precisely. Now, that's not to say there aren't situations where continuous randomness is welcome, but certainly in the percussion department, this is a very welcome approach, because it often is the case that those random fluctuations can cause some phase issues, and then I don't have the massive drum hitting hard. Or if I do have that on one print attempt, then another snare later on is going to sound weak. So this is a rant, but I really like this approach. Now, again, is this something you can pick up on its own? Because these sound very similar as you play them. sound similar, you can hear that something is different, something is off. For whatever reason, the ones on the left seem to be hitting hard. So I can actually like the dynamic control on the right better. It comes across as more dynamic. But then again, I seem to lose that very top end of the dynamics there. So yeah, feels better to play, but maybe this has a bit more impact on most cases. I also got to say that the velocity here seems very easy to be angered. Like, it's quite difficult to play very quiet and then go to the hard dynamics or the loud ones sort of easier, because it seems to jump there very fast. Now obviously there are a number of ways you can change this. You can obviously, you know, go in here and adjust the velocity behavior, or I can do that on my keyboard, etc. But obviously I do prefer libraries that work perfect out of the box, because less work for me, yay. That's what I'm always trying to do, so I can work on stuff that I want to work on. And this was in Nashville scoring strings also. I felt like we went to the hard dynamics quite easily. And if this is the case on my keyboard, which is a Dope PK88, which is super dynamic and expressive, then it's on a keyboard that has less resolution in the key travel. I can imagine this gets super intensive, really loud. So you probably want to be tweaking the velocity there. Also, one of the things I wanted to touch on from the walkthrough video, this is a massive intro, but again, I feel like there's a lot of stuff that needs to be explored and clarified before we jump into in here, because otherwise I don't think it's fair for me to just completely stumble around in the dark without knowing anything. Especially after Nashville scoring strings, it was clear to me that you should, or you're in a better position to enjoy the library the more you know about how it's laid out. And again, I would hope that just the experience of using it would open up all of these things as obvious elements, but they're not. In terms of how that could be done for the library and the folder structure and the naming, etc., that's a tough ask, but still an observation worth making. I lost my key point there, why I started this whole thing. But yeah, this is a big intro, but I want to do this justice, because it's clear to me that these are libraries that you do want to, look under the hood a bit, because it does massively explode the potential that these have. So I really feel like it's fair for me to touch on this. And also, I'm doing this because I looked at the folder structure and I asked myself, I don't know what these things mean. And if I'm completely blindly going to fumble into this, it doesn't seem very, very, very fair. So that's the reasoning here. Interestingly enough, watching the walkthrough video, this was done in collaboration with Performance Samples, which is a super interesting thing, because during our demo of Nashville scoring strings, I said that this it had very similar qualities to a lot of the Performance Samples stuff. I could hear some of the same methodologies. Now, I don't know if they collaborated with Performance Samples on Nashville scoring strings, but I'm actually going to look that up after this demo, and and I'm sure some of you know that whether it is or not is or not the case. But yeah, that was very cool to learn that this is done with them, because I had that feeling for Nashville scoring strings without actually knowing that. But again, I don't know if it's the case. We'll see afterwards. But is there something? There are so many things to touch on here, but I think we're just going to jump into the interface here. Actually, I do want to look up this word, this Puili. because I've never heard it and I've never seen it. And ooh, okay. So this is a okay. So it seems like it's spelled differently, but it's a stick type. So cool. We figured it out. Thank you, internet. And I think, okay, so this gives me an indication that hard is referring to the stick type. Let's look at here. Daiko. Let's try and find something that you can hit with something else. The Taiko. Rims muted double. I don't seem to find, for example, brushes written here anywhere. So I don't know. Again, I don't know. Yeah, let's look at the interface here. So mixer window opens up by default. To the left, you have mics here. So this is all of the mics, presumably, that they've used or ended up using for this. And you can combine these to create your own mixes. But in the mix window, you got close, then you got MR, which is probably, I don't know, medium range, or there's probably another term for that, but mid, and then you got RM, which is probably room, and then AM, which is probably ambience. Very cool. I was super impressed by the mics in Nashville scoring strings, so that's very nice. Then you have an align button, which is not a page, but is a, or is it? A slider thing here. Ooh, okay. So, yeah, you drag the one on the bottom to adjust alignment. That's really cool, because a lot of the time you need that. And then you have a reset button here. So if I drag this here, you could just reset the way it opens up from the menu. You got panning up here. Can't imagine I'll be adjusting that much in this demo. And then you have a stereo experience here as well. Up here you got the mod matrix here. I'm not gonna look at that much, but I presume you can you know, send stuff around and adjust. I mean, I'm presuming it has ADSR here, so adjust those things. Advanced, which we had a peek at, I think, yeah, transpose, velocity, pitch, fine tune, etc. Effects, again, and open up the mix presets if you want to, you know, probably get the best introduction into what these have to offer, because they're done by badass professionals, so don't waste that opportunity. And then we have the sequencer, which I couldn't find a section on in the walkthrough video. It's probably in there, I would presume, but it wasn't timestamped or laid out. You know, if I scrolled through it, I couldn't find this represented very clearly, but I presume it's in some of the beat stuff that we saw, because it had a BPM in there, so I would presume that does something. Or maybe some of these fills are actually built inside the sequencer here instead of being you know, recorded fills, etc. Cool. Simple enough. Let's start playing. And again, you'll be hearing LA Modern Percussion in action on its own. I've added no effects, nothing, no reverb, nothing compression. We do have a limiter on the master bus running the FabFilter Pro L2 here in a very transparent mode. This is only to get the level decent for this video, so it is as transparent as I can make it. That being said, we are dealing with a percussion sample library, so some of the peaks will be caught because there's such a big difference in energy level for the transient information versus kind of the body of the percussive instrument. So it will level some of those peaks, but this is as transparent as I can humanly make this. And certainly if I'll be hearing any significant, certainly clipping, but compression to my ear, I'll be pulling it back. So I'll be trying to keep it as natural as possible, while still making the level somewhat decent for this video. So I will be adjusting that as we move through the video. If you hear clipping, it's most certainly the limiter in action, and if it's not, I'll let you know. And obviously in terms of transparency, Audio Ollie did send me this copy to check out, so thank you to them for doing that. That being said, all opinions are my own, both in the positive and the negative. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. And I'm not also being paid to make this video or record it or edit it. So that's that. So thanks to them for sending this over. We're not doing very well if I'm fumbling with my words already in this intro. I mean, we're pretty far into this and we haven't even started playing. So, bass drum ensemble, and let's start playing. Yeah, the keys, the green keys to the left definitely hit harder out of the gate, which is kind of strange because as far as I understand how they're laid out, all of the samples, both of them should be in here, but there should be no change in how it plays in terms of velocity. Yet when I play the ones on the right, it feels far more dynamic and controllable. On the left, it just hits really hard all the time. So to me, that hard note hitting, as I'm playing, it feels like it's like a maybe an upper mid dynamic, yet it's smashing it really hard. And this is so. It's a shame here because listening to these quieter dynamics, and if there are 25 of them, I don't feel like I'm exactly accessing them through this very easily. So I will need to tweak the velocity behavior here to pull that out. But these, first of all, the sound of this is very nice. This is very, very, very well tracked, polished. It's what was clear to me from Nashville Scoring Strings is that they have a good understanding of the mixing part of putting orchestral strings together. There was kind of like a mid scoop in the sound of it, but that can have a negative connotation. It was very nicely done. The lows hit and boom and resonate really nicely, and the highs were really present and sharp and hard hitting, but it's not unpleasant. And the mids were sort of kind of puffier, hazier, but it sat together so well, and I could hear that it would be very easy to bring other stuff there into the middle. So really well done. And that's the same thing is very evident with the sound of this. I mean, we're literally playing the first sound here, but even so. And yes, by the way, this is otherwise a blind demo. I haven't played a single note of this before recording this. I did have to watch the walkthrough video just to get my basic bearings with this library going. So in that sense, it's not a completely blind demo, but otherwise it is. So So I would like it to be triggering those harder hits a bit less intensively. Let me actually play through this range to get like an actual sense of where stuff resides. So the first 4 notes, there's not a significant difference here as far as I can tell. Definitely there's a difference, but in terms of the first 3 notes especially are very much in the same zone. I can hear the third one is hitting harder. Then the difference, like there are differences, but in terms of how, if I was playing this on the keyboard here, I'm not accessing, I'm not expressing different rhythm if I'm playing with those notes here in the low end. So seems like there's a bit of redundancy here to my taste, but let's move on to the next layer, I guess, or you know, style layer. And it sounds like these two are sort of in the same category. So here you have a pretty drastic jump in texture. So I think this is at least one of the contributing factors to me feeling like there's a bit of a the sensitivity to the dynamics isn't quite there, because this sounds more like a ensemble-y dropping heftier sound compared to like a very different texture there. And already here we have, again, a different texture. So we only have really 2 samples to work with in this range. And okay, this is again another pretty big jump to me. And we're only just past the halfway point in terms of dynamics here. And this would explain why I don't feel like I have the perfect amount of control here, because we don't really have the samples here to express that. And this is interesting because this C, or the sample on the C, is definitely more transient, definitely sharper, but then the next one loses that sharpness and that edge, but it has more bottom on it. But the way Kontakt is interpreting that is we're supposed to go up in dynamics. So I think all of these different aspects of the sound should scale with the dynamics, and not just, because this seems kind of inconsistent in that way. I would want to go from low to high, not only getting harder hits, but also having the kind of the transient punch quality, the presence, maybe the harshness of it increasing as well. But here we have kind of a, you know, drop in there. And then here we have, again, what I would, you know, interpret as redundancy, because we have a lot of hard hits, but it doesn't, we don't get a lot of expressiveness here in the top end. And I would want to make the hardest hits, the scale of that, the resolution of that doesn't need to be super big. And indeed, if I hit, you know, 127 in terms of MIDI velocity here, I want to be sure that I'm getting that same sound, and only pretty much at that range. So here we get definitely weight and volume increased, but otherwise the texture kind of stays the same. And to me, this isn't super expressive in terms of the range there. So there it isn't too bad as you play them in, you know, one after the other. But in practice here, it just, I don't feel like I can really access the amount of control that I'm looking for. Yeah, it's just like, I feel like I'm playing at maybe at best upper mid velocity level, but I'm already getting some of these harder textures, and that's just too much energy for what I'm trying to interpret. So I would have to play really quiet here, or I would have to play in as I see fit and then just drag everything in the MIDI editor down. But that's even not going to result in the best possible result, because the samples aren't really mapped the way that I would be after. But for example, that is a pretty stark difference, because we're starting to get that transient hard information in here, and then it's suddenly lost in the next step. And that's a great sample, has a lot of weight and body there, but you know, I need to know consistently what kind of transient information and what kind of body I'm expressing as I'm playing. It can't change across the scale, you know, because it's supposed to consistently map. Otherwise, I can't predict what I'm playing, or then I will need to adjust things individually there. So yeah, that high, I'm not playing very loud at all, and those harder textures are coming in. Let's see if I can, what happens if I max out the velocity here. So it doesn't really fix the issue, because again, some of those harder textures and transients are popping through. I definitely get a lot more leeway to play with as I'm playing very quiet. But still, those harsher transients and textures are popping through. So yeah, doesn't really help in that regard. I do want to touch on the sound of this. It sounds really, really good. We have a perfect amount of weight in the bottom and body, and then the smack of this is fantastic. It's not underwhelming, it's not overwhelming, and again, I can hear that this will respond to processing in a fantastic way. So I think their approach to having these mixing presets which you can pull in is a really fantastic idea. In practice, this makes a lot of sense, and I think it's well designed. And I would much prefer this approach over having just like samples over how Alan Meyerson has done it, because that will obviously exponentially make this library much bigger. And this does have quite a small footprint at 28 gigs or so. So that's really cool. Let's actually see if I can figure out this preset thing. So I gotta go to LA Modern Percussion 1.0 mix presets, and then let's do close. And I'm gonna do number 4, which means this is the most intense. Okay, works super easy and nice. So this is supposed to be the most drastic drastic amount of processing here, just to get an idea of what the scope is. And again, I'm gonna pull down my limiter all the way and then adjust level accordingly. So interesting. The effects here are definitely gonna, they complement the velocity control range quite a bit. So that's an improvement. This is, in terms of processing, this is a bit excessive to my taste, but you know, they do state it's extreme. But it does pull the low end to, it does, because when you add that compression and that saturation there, it does express the samples very, very, very differently. And it kind of exposes the differences in the sampling level there. Let's do close 1. This is close mic position or focused. Well, if we look at the mixer window here, we have all the mic, or sorry, the different mixes on, but it's focused on close. So close 1. So, drastic improvement. It really does even out a lot of the inconsistencies that I was talking about before. I don't know why these samples, they just hit harder. Like, it's very difficult for me to pull the sensitive or quieter notes out of these ones on the left. It just expresses those very easily, as opposed to but it would make sense in the sense that if the samples aren't exactly mapped perfectly in here in terms of how I would define increase in transient information and hardness, and also increasing in body and etc., then this would sort of more bring a certain level of inconsistency in there that seems to be responding to my playing in a certain way. Whereas if this is expressing always the same samples as according to my playing, then it would be more consistent. Okay, that was a horrible explanation, but the velocity control gets a lot better with these mix settings. So that is definitely worth noting and thinking about. So, okay, let's do mid 1. It seems like the let me try and see if, because I don't seem to see a big difference in the, because it should be changing the mix balance, right? At least that's what I would presume, because it's called a mix preset, but I don't know if I see any difference here. Because it would be strange that it doesn't change what you have going on there. Let's do room 1. Okay, they do change, but they're still all on. again there, we get into that higher velocity sound very easily. I feel like I'm missing that. A bit more control in the, or expression in the low dynamics and then also in the mids. We don't need so much of this hard-hitting top-end velocity layer in my taste and estimation, but these are obviously to a large degree subjective, but just my 2 cents. In terms of how to reset, we don't have a reset button here on the effects page, so I'm just gonna do this. Let's open up Puili. I don't know how that's pronounced, but that's what we have now. Well, actually, no. Yes. Let's do this. Let's play this default thing first, which is I'm a bit confused about this control here. So this is like is this like a full stereo mix? I turn it off, everything turns off. That's a close mic, it's a mid, it's the room, it's the ambience. So maybe this is a full thing. Put a bit more gain into that. So here I feel like I have more expressive control. It doesn't get super loud, which I would presume is due to the stick type that you can't express it, but this feels a lot more playable to me. That sounds a bit like a brush thing. At least the pictures I saw of the Puili, apparently, is it just looked like a big stick. That doesn't sound like it, so it sounds like a brush to me. Okay, so let me briefly just play this range here. Okay, so that seems a lot better. There isn't discrepancies here as far as I can hear. That sounds very reasonable and well scaled and mapped. Very different to me than the first sound or the first reset. Again, I don't feel like I have tremendous access and control into the dynamics there, which kind of tells me that they're too close to one another. There isn't like enough separating qualities there, so that it would sort of come to life as I'm playing it. But let's go through some of these mic positions. So this, as I would presume it, is the close mics. And again here, I'm playing fairly dynamically, but I don't feel like I have like a lot of. I'm not getting the low end dynamic expression there very easily, and I'm getting a bit too loud, a bit too easily. So again, I mean, if I go into advanced, okay, let's try this at full. again, there it feels like too much is drowning into nothingness, but that feels better. Again, we go into that tougher velocity a bit too easy. Let's try 50%. Nice low-end resonance there. That's better. That's better. I do feel like there's a bit of like gets a bit. What's the word? I'm missing a lot of words today. It doesn't sound super expressive in terms of the dynamic range, but yeah, I mean, in terms of simply the instruments here, the way they're recorded and sampled, and how this is mixed, it is super nice. And again, in Nashville scoring strings, I also felt like we were pushing into the louder dynamics very easily. Like we didn't have a tremendous spectrum of expression of those dynamics. So this clearly has that kind of same aspect here. But in terms of like doing the samples and what we hear here and how they work for a professional mix scoring sound, just really fantastic stuff, really maturely done, because you can hear it sits very perfectly in the soundscape. So nothing to criticize there. In fact, it's fantastic, but it just makes me want to, you know, dig deeper in there and get more of that expressiveness out. And again, you can blame me as a player as well, which is fair enough. But yeah, I mean, many libraries figure this out, so you know, I would presume there are things that can be done to, you know, better the experience. And you know, a lot of players aren't great, and the more we can make great music with, you know, without the skill level of a pro, the better it is for music. Yeah, what was I going to touch on? I had something in mind regarding this. Can't remember. Let's do the mid mic here. Okay, so this feels a lot better. Obviously, this is a very stark sound. It's a very different, which again is great because a lot of libraries don't have this. You have 1,000 mix or mic positions and they do nothing. This is clearly a very different sound. I love how this expresses itself here on the right green keys. I feel like there the relationship is better. Like as I hit hard, I'm actually triggering some of the harder notes there. So that's really good. This also has a very nice like a rowdy weight to it. You could do a lot of like really cool stuff where you want it to feel like there's a group of, you know, drunken pirates in a tavern going crazy playing. We'll do a mix on these after I've gone through all of these, but this is the room mic, I would presume. Again, it pushes into the mid velocity range pretty easily, but the top end velocities are better expressed there. This one is the ambience mic. Beautiful stereo image. This was what I picked up from Nashville Scoring Strings as well. That beautifully adds the stereo image and field, whatever the last mic composition there was. So I often started by combining that with the close mics. So let's do that. It just adds a bit of spread. Yeah, I think something I wanted to say at one point with Nashville Scoring Strings is that the close mic positions were super strong, and that seems to be the case here as well. Very impactful, focused sound, but it's not choked, and it's not like very cramped and muddy and resonant, as they often tend to be with so many libraries. Like these are like super sharp, ready to go, focused. Has a bit of that ambience there. It's not like a, you know, some kind of a weird Kontakt mic shoved inside, you know, a tom or a kick drum. Yeah, this is a very good take on it. The room mics and the mid mics are kind of in the same kind of textural category. The other one is definitely more distant, but let's see how much use I can pull out of those. I'll try adding the mid first. So it does very easily add a sense of space there without really doing a lot here for me. Let's test the room mic. So there you begin to hear it add just that high-end information. And obviously that sense of the room size there. But you have to be careful that it doesn't just add a lot of top end for you, and through that a lot of brightness and harshness. So I'm a big fan of the close mics here in terms of how I would blend in these two in the mid. I would depend on the context, but as you know, and obviously I'm playing simultaneously as I'm adjusting the mics here, so that's not ideal either. But yeah, nice sound. Again, I just wish we had a bit more of that expressiveness, because the dynamic range feels a bit like big cramped. It like we don't get the extreme expressions that I'm hoping. But yeah, loving the close mic position here. Next up, what are we gonna look at here? So we got bass drum ensemble, traditional hits and rolls. So let's see what this does. Okay, so let me play this. This seems like it has more dynamics. I don't know. Let me play this. imagining this. This feels a bit more expressive. Again, I find it difficult to dig into the low velocity layer here. So let me add this. So that gets a bit, I got some just quiet notes here, so let me pull that back. Let's do half of what we had. Well, actually, yeah, let's do 50%. This feels like it's getting there, what I'm after. Nope, that's not enough. So 75%. Nope, still not enough. So this is too much. Let's try 90%. So this sound to me just sounds better. It hits hard. It's even a better mix than what we had before, which was already a good one, or I should say a great one. And this seems a bit more expressive. Obviously we have to tweak the velocity here. Let's try 95%. So I'd really want to play there in the low end velocity range there, because so many beautiful percussive textures come alive there, and you get this big rumble. Like if you want like a big resonant rumble on a percussion instrument, you actually want to mic pretty close and play really hard. You get these like ooh, massive boomy resonances. So I really want to, you know, be playing there at the low end, because it does have a beautiful sound. I just don't seem to be able to dig into those velocities. So again, 90%. Again, I'm playing very quiet, and it's still kind of throwing in the mid velocities there. So okay, this is, have I got this the wrong way? I don't, this sounds kind of weird. That sounds strange, because here I can clearly hear the velocity expression increases in the mid, but then it kind of tapers off. Because I would presume this would give me more velocity as I increase it. So with a lot of libraries, it squashes the curve of it, or kind of extends it. But I guess this isn't laid out the same way. Let me just play around with this. This sounds like there's some kind of weird reverse compression, kind of like some kind of expansion going on here. I really don't know how this works. Such a great sound, but I just don't connect with the velocity layers. And I don't know how this is laid out either. I don't know what it does at minus 100. I can hear some kind of scooping happening, some kind of like compression. So that feels pretty good, but the feels like something is happening to the sound profile. Yeah, we just get so many hard hits, but this did feel better. So what does this do when I... So this probably, to my interpretation with this logic, then it should be decreasing. I don't know what it does, and I'm sorry, I can't figure it out based on what I'm hearing. But please do let me know. Cool. Okay, the discovery continues. Fast flam. Those sound really good. And yeah, the rolls in the previous one were very strange to me. It sounded too scattered and kind of uniform. Okay, so that's a lot better. Obviously, it was a static velocity. So with the mod wheel, you can control that. Really beautiful sound image, beautiful sound. There at the very end, for this style that they're playing, this is sort of a bit too, what's the word? It sounds a bit sliced up, not in terms of the editing, but it's a very, come on. Can I find no words today to describe any of the things I'm after? Let's go with sliced. I don't know. Sounds a bit like that. So with that, I would be expecting a release that was more abrupt, but here it sounds like it sort of loses the edge as I release it. Like I would expect like a complete drop, but there is like a drop off release sample, which I would use this for like a big build up, and there would be like a fast stop, but that kind of just tapers off, which kind of makes you lose the tension of the sound. Let's try hard fills. And yeah, so I was going to look whether I'm actually going to go back, go to the rolls and see if this was sequencer based. So it doesn't seem like it is, so this is apparently a sample. So if I do hard fills 120, these are samples also presumably. Okay, so this is a tremendous utility to have, professionally played, sound great. So if you don't write in your own percussion parts, these can be super great. And oftentimes percussion is the weakness for like a composer coming in from a typical path, because if you never touched a percussion instrument yourself, it can be very hard to pull out the textures that you're after if you don't have the experience of playing one yourself. So these can be really good. So as far as I can tell, the key switches here basically slice the fill into smaller chunks. So this way you can, if you like a part that's happening in a fill, with these you can slice it up and just use a section of it without having to go into the MIDI editor further, just use the key switches. That's really good utilitarian tool. We're not going to look at these phrases more than that, because I mean this is a super long demo anyway. But yeah, we're here to listen to the thing more. That's not a very good sentence, but you know, listen to these instruments and play them ourselves, because that's what I do and that's what a lot of you do. But yeah, these fills, everything sounds really good in that department. So bass drums, what I presumed was solo. These only have fills and phrase end hit elements. So I'm presuming they're not the solo instruments then. Yeah, I don't know what SL stands. Alright, so next up, Daiko Ensemble. This one has hard 1 and hard 2. So I'm thinking this must be the style that it's played in. I'm sorry I couldn't figure that information out, but I literally couldn't find it anywhere. And at least in the first phases of the walkthrough demo, I couldn't pick this up. But we'll see. I mean, we'll hear. So if it's intended to just be a hard hitting library, then I mean that changes the context of my criticism. But also it does have very quiet velocities as well that aren't hard. So I'm doubting that interpretation. All right, Daikos. Let's play him. Again, let's go through this range. So again, these sound very good in terms of providing you with a vast scope here. That sounds good. Again, I don't feel like I can access those quieter velocities here. I need to play so quiet. I mean, even there I'm playing quiet, and I'm at least getting that note, which is already like a third in of the velocity there. So again, I need to go into velocity control. And here's the thing, the velocity before started from the middle and it went minus 100 and plus 100. This one just goes from 0, so it's a lot easier to figure out. Again, kind of an interesting thing. So let's put it at 100 and let's see how I can play this. So again, there, just some of the notes just disappear completely. Let's go to 90%. So that's better, but I still feel like it's just wants to be loud, you know. So cool. Let's try hard 2. Let's see how that differs. Okay, so this is just like rim stick type of thing. Again, just beautifully sampled. This is a beautiful sound. This seems to respond to velocity a lot better. Let me do some playing. Yeah, that responds better. Obviously, that's not like a hit type where you would go just super, super quiet. I really like these quiet velocities here. I just wish it was sort of maybe heavily expressed or easily expressed. Let's put this to 75. That's pretty much perfect. Like, now we're talking to my taste. Again, this is subjective. We all have different keyboards. We play differently. We're looking for different things. This is really, really, really good. But here I feel like we're completely accessing the dynamic range and expression there. Very cool. In terms of why it's named Hard 1 and 2 when there's a clear style and thing difference in terms of what we're hitting, I don't understand. I just don't understand the naming system here. I'm sure there's a very clear logic to that, but again, as far as I can tell, I couldn't discover that. We have Puili again. I'm sorry if I'm butchering how that's pronounced. So again, we have that kind of brushy, what are they called? Hot rod stick type of thing. Again, this feels like it gets a bit lively, a bit too easy. It's also a tad bit bright to my taste, but like with the previous one, that was a perfect balance. So yeah, the dynamic expressiveness comes alive here a lot better. And again, touching on some of the mic, that's the close one. Very nice, I love that. Let's do the ambient. That's very ambient. Room. All right, and mid. Again here, these reside too much in the same space for my taste. So I would be going pretty heavy on the close, supplementing with the ambience for the stereo spread if I wanted to, but I mean the close is super strong. There. Cool, I think that's it for Daiko. Okay, so here we do have Daiko's. Yeah, we have other stuff than just rolls, so maybe these are solos. So again, here, dynamics feel a lot better to me. I feel like when I'm hitting hard, it's actually giving that different one. Here, the mids seem to be a bit lacking to my taste. So again, let's check what the samples actually are. It seems like there's a lot of, again, redundancy here. It just doesn't express itself very well. And again, a lot of redundancy maybe here in the low end. Just feel like I'm accessing very little here in the mids and really getting to I feel like, again, we're jumping, when I'm playing very quietly here, we're still jumping to the last end of the first third, or the top end of the first third, so. But I love how that loud note does pop out very nicely. Good bit of resonance, good sound. So yeah, this I would be spending a lot of time with the velocity control here to get it to my taste. So I'm guessing the numbers here again express the. Okay, I'm not guessing because it's a different. It's like a different part of the instrument or style of playing, or just like a differently tuned, different sized instrument. Okay. This does sound like a solo, so maybe SL is solo after all. Again, beautifully sampled, beautiful imaging, sense of space. Fantastic. This plays better out of the box. Let's try the close mic. Beautiful, pure, impactful sound. Very, very purely done. We have Dhol, which I don't know what it even is, but apparently these are only SL, presuming that means solo. So okay, here again, as I'm looking at these different names, I have zero chance of knowing what the differences are. So I think these could use, and maybe should have some more clarification as to what I'm dealing with, because if I don't get that, then I need to learn what it is first before I can start using it, which again is not an unreasonable ask, but it feels like just an extra step to make it harder for the user when I think it could be fixed with different kind of maybe foldering or different kind of naming here. Okay, so here I have pretty good access to the lower velocities here without it kind of skipping to the kind of mid area. And this isn't a problem with the programming or the scripting, because it's clearly the samples. Because just like if I'm playing mid and the sample just gets louder, like here it doesn't, then it's going to play that. Like so, this is really more of an issue from my perspective in you know, the sample that is actually placed to that certain spectrum or that certain range. Again, here we begin to have some of those harder edges. Pretty much this has a lot of redundancy here. Very similar. Bit of less power here. I love these top end velocities. I love that kind of resonance, grit, boo, and that downwards. That's a really good sample. But again, it's a pretty tough thing to have this go to that without anything in between. I feel like there's a range missing, whereas here it's pretty repetitive, so it could have been scaled differently and sampled differently. So I think this is like a consistent challenge here to my taste. But again, if I go to advanced, let's adjust velocity a bit more. That sounds really, really good. Very nice. Again, these are so, like, in terms of the instruments, the space, the actual sampling, all that work, the imaging here is just it's a really good sounding library. It's really in this sample placement department that I think they could work on that. Djun ensemble. Let's do hard, because I go hard. Very nice sound. Again, imaging beautiful, sense of weight is perfect. It's not overbearing. Gets the point across. You get a sense of space, sense of resonance. Beautiful amount of grit and tactileness in the transient part of this. Really, really good. Let me increase the velocity control here. Let's go to 75%. Again, plays a lot better. I can get more of that expressive low dynamic in there. The high hits, I wish there was a bit of fluctuation there, because it does get a bit repetitive sounding in terms of a full mix and doing a section. Not going to be an issue, but it does catch the ear a bit that we only have really these two top end notes or dynamics, maybe three. There's again a pretty drastic jump there. So again, now looking back at the round robin issue, this is the kind of the, I don't know if that's actually even the Achilles heel here, because I think it's really the lack of the full expressiveness of the spectrum, not only volume wise but the texture wise, and also resonance wise, I would say. So I'm not gonna give that actually as a criticism in favor of round robins, although I think an argument could be made for that as well. If you did have some fluctuations there, obviously having the option would be pretty cool, because it expands the approach to this. So it's kind of an interesting commitment they've made, and I understand the arguments for it. But again, these kind of cases, if I'm hitting really hard with the options that I have here and I'm getting that top velocity, I'm only getting that same sample every single time. And since I don't actually hear, you could argue these three top dynamics are interchangeable, but they're really not. You can hear that they are different. So at the top end, if I had more of the same level of energy and texture, but just a different take on that, then I would have less of that repeating sound in there, because now it's literally just playing the same sample. And your brain does pick that up pretty fast. Now, obviously, my only option would be to trigger a different sample there, but then that's gonna affect the sound of it in different ways if it's not like just a different version of the highest velocity that I can express. Yeah. Yeah, these puilies get a bit too bright to my taste. And again, this is where you could pull up the mixes, and I could go again here into the mix preset folder, and let me open close one. But yeah, this is very bright to me. I would definitely need to pull that back here from the effects. Cool. Let's move on to, okay, so this is confusing. We've got Djun SL, and then we've got Djun SL from Ensemble. So there is a clear difference again here. What it is, I do not know. But let's do the first one. Again, this feels a lot better. I have more access to different dynamics and textures. Again, those top hits do begin to sound a bit repetitive because we just don't have different options there to be played. Dumbek Ensemble. Again, beautiful imaging, beautiful sense of space there. Beautiful dispersed sense of transience, very rich texture. This is a very nicely recorded sound. Interestingly here, we don't get to a super loud dynamic. Seems still like a pretty lukewarm hit. This is the loudest dynamic. Again here, the top hit has a very different texture even to the next step. But up to that, I feel like this is a really good, reasonable dynamic range that expresses the textural concern and the energy and the resonance. So this feels really good to me. Here in the low end, I feel like it's just becoming a volume difference, and that's kind of a problem. But yeah, I mean, in terms of round robins, it would definitely, assuming that the round robins would simply be the same texture, or sorry, the same, you know, obviously volume, but the transient, the harshness of it, the texture, if that would be different, even that could just increase the realism here a lot. And I understand what they're saying when it comes to the argument against it. But again, if that was a controllable option, if I could control what round robin would be triggering when, that would obviously fix the issue. And oftentimes you can choose which ones are live, and how they, you know, jump, if they go from one to the next or completely random. But yeah, I mean, that would require that they are otherwise, you know, similar texturally, which kind of is the challenge with this library as well, that's not always consistent in all places. So I mean, yeah. But again, this low end, there's a lot of yeah, I think that could be addressed by bringing more change between these, because there feels like there's a bit of redundancy there. But beautiful sound. This is the close mic of that. I'm going to explore the mics as I find interesting sounds, so because we can't do everything here. It's very nice. Mid. That's distinctively different. That's very cool. Again, that brings more body and space. That's good. Ambient. That's really like a space stereo enhancer. Cool. Very nice. Let's do Gran Casa ensemble. That top end dynamic, there is, it's not clipping, but there's like a very, that's quite like an unpleasant top end snap. Yeah, I would definitely treat that away, because it does sound just very harsh on the ear. I can't, from my interface analyzer, I can't see that peak. I would need to boost it to see where it is, but the first note there, we did have a bit of limiter clipping. that does it does press on the ear pretty aggressively. Yeah, to me that top end is, without treatment, it becomes unusable. But I like the puffiness. And this is really like very soundscape building here. Has a nice bit of puffiness there. It's yeah, shame about the top end there. I don't know what's happening there. That just sounds like digital clipping. It does very snappy. That could be taken out pretty easily with something like OEK Sound Spiff, but cool. Master patches. Okay, well, these seem like these would have been a good place to start, I guess. So again, here in the naming, it reveals more information to me. The standard velocity, so apparently that is an aspect that is taken into consideration here. Somehow. But I don't know, let's play this. Okay, so right off the bat, this seems to play a lot better to me. Like the dynamics feel super nice. That is super snappy and meaty. I like this. So I'm based on this, them stating standard velocity, just beginning to think that the hard means the velocity here. But where that is being pulled from, I have no idea. It's certainly not the velocity control here, so it must be in the sampling or somewhere else where I can't track it. I mean, these don't get super quiet either, but I mean, this definitely feels, whatever has come my way so far in this patch seems a lot more playable. Really like this sound. Like it's super well done, super mature, clearly coming from the perspective of having done a lot of mixes and knowing how percussion has to deal with other instruments as well. It sounds like it's making space for other things, so that's just fantastic. Cool. Okay, yeah. So that feels better to me right out of the box. Again, I don't know what standard velocity is referring to in terms of the difference. So apparently the previous one was I would presume the solos, and this is the ensembles. That low end is really nice. So I hear it does have very quiet samples there as well if I just play like that, but that's a massive low end. I love that sound. Let me try and, okay, so let's pull up the velocity again here. About 75, and let me play some of these things. Very nice sound. These really don't get nearly as loud as the low end does, so you would need to balance that somehow. But again, beautiful sounds, beautiful samples. Next up we would have not oral, but all orchestral, presumably solo. Very cool. Very responsive. Sounds like just rototoms there. So I don't know why it's orchestral. Because these sound more like standard orchestral things. So again, another interesting naming philosophy. I don't know. To me they sounded like rototoms or something similar, but so yeah, these just seem to combine stuff into these kind of different presets. I think we're gonna just go through these, and that's gonna be the rest of this demo. This is already an immensely long demo because we've had to touch on so many things, but we're gonna play all of these. So we'll hopefully cover enough of this ground here. And we haven't even touched on the multis, but let's do that. Push the volume a bit here. So again here, this clearly covers just a certain aspect of the Taiko. Again, this makes me feel like SL isn't solo, because it seems to be more focused. Because none of these notes are super hard hitting, so it's kind of like feels like a medium expression. very cool. I like actually love the imaging here on these top sticks. They feel fairly expressive. Again, I feel like I'm not getting the top dynamic here. Funnily enough, it kind of gets like suppressed or clamped somehow. Or we just don't have the sample of that, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm feeling like maybe just a top harder hit would be nice, but super nice imaging here again. All right, let's move on to the all Taiko ensemble. Again, standard velocity. I don't know what that is referring to. Super nice sound. I love the brushes here. They definitely get too bright to my taste. This definitely would be like a problem in my mixes. I would need to tame that down. Very easy to do with just like a basic shelving EQ, but still. Well, that's a super nice sample. Very snappy, juicy, crispy. That's stellar. And again, we have a good amount of dynamics there. I can feel like I can access that really well. Maybe that's even better. Yeah, it is better. Yeah. Super nice. So there are some real diamonds in there in terms of the sampling. All toms and bass drums. SL. Whatever that means. Let's pull back the limiter a bit. I love this sound because it's super gritty and resonant and like boomy in a certain way, but just like, you know, out of control. Fantastic tom sound. Again, I feel like I'm missing that maybe the bottom third in terms of dynamics. Very difficult to access those samples for me. So let's put this to 75%. Just feels like sometimes there isn't anything to be played. Let's pull that back to 50. Very cool sound. Kind of a good mix of some brushy stuff, but then we have a fair bit of resonance. Pretty much perfect for, like, a lot of the time in percussive parts, you want something to keep the time, and it's kind of like a hi-hat, but it's a bit more kind of a hi-hat snare thing. That's perfect. Sorry for the crappy ideas, but I'm just kind of like exploring the sound. That's super nice. Kind of like a resonant snare tom with sounds like rattling snares, but then it's kind of like a brush. And then it kind of resonates at the top velocity there like a rototom. Almost like a conga. Again, very easy, like it sounds very like hard hitting all the time. I just want more scope for the dynamics. Kick drum, beautiful sound, but again louder than the rest of it. I would bring that down a bit. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sounds. And again, yeah, super polished, super ready for a mix. This one is all toms and bass drums ensemble, I think. It's just, yeah. So let's do ensemble. That's very much louder than the other ones. Let me just check we don't have any issues here. Yep. Again, a beautiful kind of a whatever you would call that rattling sound. Again, this doesn't get bright at all. It's just some of them are too bright to my taste, but these are super nicely balanced. Perfect amount of presence, but it doesn't get harsh on the ear. Yeah, just the top end of the stick hitting whatever that is. Very nice. This has a beautiful bottom boominess. Right there at 50 Hertz. Very cool. All ethnic SL. Split velocity. So let's find out what split means. beautiful resonant sounds here. Cool. I mean, in terms of what split means, got no idea. This is ensemble. Again, the sounds are different, so I don't think solos make up for the ensembles unless it's stated separately. I just don't know how this is structured. I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but I'm just so confused about this naming method, etc. And it's not coming together in terms of the folders there either. I mean, I know these are the master patches, but still. Very beautiful sound. Cool. Yeah. Tremendous sounds. Orchestral. SL. Again here, I don't understand why it doesn't say what's in there in terms of instruments. I mean, I understand not listing all of them. It doesn't make sense, but a little bit aggressive edge on the cymbals. Again, here is the mixing aspect of this does come to aid, and really what the thing about seems to be like, to me, the thing about the Ollie products seem to be like they have so much like true flexibility in terms of what the mics bring, and this whole mixing preset concept in terms of how it mixes stuff in Kontakt for that. It just really is like a beast of its own. That's not a concept I've seen in a lot of libraries done to this extent, and really the differences are super stark. So if you don't explore that, I feel like you're missing out on a lot of what these libraries do. So that's a really important takeaway. Again, great samples. Don't know what the split velocities do here either. These do have velocity in here. I don't know how it's split, but beautiful taikos. Cool. All tones and bass drums again. And this, well, the difference is presumably the split velocity, but I don't notice much difference in practice. super playable. These again behave better to me in terms of the velocity mapping and actually having samples that express that velocity. Cool, I think we've explored that plenty. Cool. So I think I'm gonna have a peek in the multis. If there's anything, I mean, Blood Ensemble sounds pretty crazy. If that, I mean, those. Okay, I see. So it just takes a bunch of instruments, combines them in a balance, but this does just one thing. So I can't, you know, play this otherwise. Let me pull the limiter down all the way. I wish I could, like, it's very hard to play this very quietly. There are some good dynamics there again. Yeah, I just can't pull the velocity dynamics out of that. Really good, really well balanced, I should say. Chernobyl. It's kind of interesting. Okay, so these have that kind of something stylistic going on. Pretty limited utility for me because I rarely just want to play like a stack of notes. But I guess you could then maybe use the sequencer or the effects. Yeah, so I mean, they do layer these sounds, so you have to be mindful of that. But I will say, brilliantly balanced, really good mix balance for what they've gone for. And these kind of give added flexibility here in terms of providing some value right out of the box. And these are good for, certainly for individual hits where you want to go for a sound. So these give that to you out of the box. Again, this is beautifully mixed, beautifully balanced, perfect imaging. And again, for a sound like this, this is obviously playable. Very cool. So these are clearly very tastefully and skillfully done. Cool. Good stuff. Okay, I think that has got to be it for this demo. This has been going for such a long time, and so we gotta wrap this up. But a super interesting experience. I don't think I've ever done a demo like this, and there's definitely still a lot of mystery in here that I don't understand. And first and foremost, I want to apologize for not knowing all of how this is laid out and all the names here, how, like, what they actually mean. I tried to pick those out of the walkthrough as well as I could. We at least got some of the basics right from that, but yeah, so a lot of exploration here, and a lot of testing and tweaking to find out what things do, and I still don't know much of what it does. But wrapping this up, the instruments they're playing, the sampling, the engineering side of that capturing that is just fantastic. Beautiful sounding instruments in a beautiful space, pristine, pure, beautiful sound. So in that department, really brilliant work. You're getting really high class, high quality, brilliantly polished and balanced samples. So that's definitely one of the things that they nailed here in the sampling part, and the space is beautiful, and clearly, you know, Meyerson's touch here is very much present. What I'm yearning for, well, first and foremost, I think this could be streamlined quite a bit as a better user experience, because now you do genuinely need to know how this library is laid out in the folders, what all of these terms mean. You have to familiarize yourself with that to pull the most out of this. Like I said, with Nashville scoring strings, you should absolutely play with the mics, because it makes a huge difference. And it sounds stupidly obvious, but you know, you become quite jaded in this industry because a lot of companies don't make meaningful mic positions. And when a company like Audio Ollie comes along, who do make meaningful mic positions and different mixes, it's kind of like it can be easily missed, because you don't often tend to gain a lot of usability with a lot of companies through that. But so you have to know that there's a lot to be offered there, and you need to tweak things and test things. And even with Nashville scoring strings, you also have the symphony excuse me, the symphony sounds, which again, as far as I can tell, weren't explained anywhere what they do. And also the differences between A and B, they're just, you know, apparently differently treated sounds. But even finding this kind of information should be pretty fast and simple. Like a help thingy on the interface would do a lot. I mean, we do have this mixes info button here, but this doesn't really explain anything that I can't pick up from the thing itself. So I think more is needed here, but maybe a folder structure. I mean, much of this, because I was looking for a manual, I was looking for it from the website, I was looking for it in the folder of this. I think simple explanations, simple summaries there would ease the pain of this a lot, and then I could actually, you know, get in here and start treating things as how they are supposed to be treated, because it's clear that these libraries are done with a lot of maturity and a lot of experience in the field of not only sampling, but in the field of, you know, cinematic sound. They know what it's like to work in those areas clearly, and they put that expertise here. But it's at times very hard to access because I don't know either where it is or what I'm looking at or how it's named, etc. So a manual would be great, and I do apologize if it's there hidden in plain sight and I'm just not seeing it. But, you know, a manual in this installation folder and a manual on the website would be cool. and with clarification in terms of what these terms mean and these shortenings, that would help a lot. Also, presuming solo is SL is solo, why are the instruments different to the ensemble? Because I'd still presume the same instruments would be in there. But yeah, then in terms of like one of the most important things is the touching on the dynamics. Some of the sounds have, if not spot on, then very close to being spot on dynamic layering. So as I'm playing, I feel like I'm pulling out the fullest expression of the instrument out of there. But I don't think most sounds are in that camp. I feel like in terms of sampling, the dynamic ranges, there's quite a bit of redundancy there in varying areas, but the low end of the dynamics and also the top end, I'm like, there's too much of that same information being repeated without really bringing an expanded sense of dynamics or texture or resonance. You know, there's not enough of a difference happening for me to be picking that up from the playing. So I think more, and also some of the consistencies weren't quite there. Like if I'm playing upwards in terms of the dynamic range, I'm expecting the qualities that are arriving to me to be increasing also as I go higher and higher in the dynamic range. If suddenly something pops up as I'm playing louder and then it just disappears in the next note, that's not consistent. So texturally, I would expect things that appear to be increasingly appearing and becoming bigger and bigger. The body, the resonance of the instrument becoming bigger and bigger. So those kind of things were in many cases missing. Now, it's not all of the instruments, because some of them were very much spot on, and some of them with a bit of a velocity tweak in the advanced window did it for me. So this is by no means everywhere, but it is like a consistency concern that I thought about here. Also, it seems like the library tends to tilt towards the hard hitting end, which is kind of strange because I can hear the quiet samples there. But again, I find it hard to access that because the range isn't fully explored and expressed. And because of that, I'm struggling to pull the textural and all kinds of differences out of the dynamic range because they're not expressed in the samples. I'm sorry if that's a horribly ineffective way of expressing what I'm trying to say, but it's been a long day and my brain is pretty fried at this point. But I think that pretty much covers the main points here. There's obviously so much we didn't touch on. This library is quite vast, and again, just looking at these different names and definitions here, it's even hard to grasp what is in here because these don't tend to be super descriptive in all cases. But there's so much stuff in here, and I wish this was sort of more easily accessible in the interface in the form of different presets. This feels to me like maybe a very practical composer's approach, someone who is a composer themselves and wants to build a library, and then they know specifically the tools that and the sounds that they're searching for and need for specific use cases. And because of that, it does require a steeper learning curve from the user's part to get in here and start using this as a tool. It doesn't open itself up just through the user experience or opening up the presets aren't sort of super versatile and expressive in a way that kind of reveals itself as a full experience. You kind of need to go in here and what you're looking for, and there is a lot to go through, as you see as I as I go through these menus. So maybe something in that department, if we could, you know, summarize, put together, I don't know, somehow bring this together better as a user experience. But you know, the master patches kind of give you a better taste of that, better sense of that for sure. So probably for this demo, this would have been the best starting point, and then go to the individual ones here. But again, like for rototoms, I've got 7 different you know, patches here, and I can't here tell what the differences are without actually playing them and learning that myself. So yeah, something maybe worth meditating on. But fantastic sounds. Again, the most impressive thing about this for me is just the quality of the sampling, the instruments, the space, and the mixing. It's just very, very evident that they know what it takes to put together a sound that sits well for a score. So is really the strength of this. Just fantastic sampling done in here. But that's it for this demo. If you have this at home or at your studio, let me know what you think. There's a ton of stuff I missed, and please do educate me on my ignorance on this. I tried to watch as much of the walkthrough as I possibly could in preparation for this, but ton of stuff I'm missing, and again, I do apologize for my ignorance in certain areas where I just don't know any better. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about this demo down in the comments. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.